Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're all about cutting through the noise, getting straight to what matters, and today, well, we're diving into international football, specifically that whole high-stakes journey or World Cup qualification. It's always nail-biting, sometimes pretty exhilarating. It's definitely more than just points, isn't it? It feels like a massive moment for any team aiming for that global stage. Every pass, every tackle, it all carries weight. So our mission today is to give you a really solid grasp of England's recent qualifier. And honestly, it was quite an electrifying performance. We've got the key source material here, basically a news report on their match against Serbia. We're going to unpack the big moments, the strategy, what it all really means. The idea is to give you a quick way to be genuinely clued in on what went down, why it's significant, and, what we can maybe learn from it. Look, the headline alone is huge. England securing 5 wins from 5 in qualifying. A dominant 5-0 victory away in Serbia. That's pretty definitive.
Oh, absolutely. It's a massive statement of intent. You have to remember this isn't just some friendly kickabout where you tinker with the squad. This is a proper World Cup qualifier. Away from home, too, against a Serbian side that, well, we'll get into this, but they aren't exactly pushovers defensively. So to go there and win 5-0, grab those 3 points, it says a lot about their current form, the way they executed their plan under Thomas Tuchel. It really marks them out as a team that's focused, has the quality, and crucially, delivers when it matters, puts them in a really commanding spot in the group.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And talking about execution, let's dig into that 5-0 scoreline a bit. Who actually got the goals? So what jumps out at me immediately is just the range of scores. It wasn't like one guy carrying the whole team. It felt very collective. Harry Kane, obviously captaining the side until he came off late on. He got the first one for Tuchel's team, about 33 minutes in. And it was a header from a corner, apparently stooping low to guide it in. That's a classic Kane finish, really, isn't it?
It is. And the fact it came from a set piece is significant. Against teams like Serbia, who you expect to sit back, maybe defend deep, a well-worked corner can be absolutely vital. It's an unlock. Kane's movement there, finding space, finishing under pressure. Yet that sets the tone early. But you're right, the key thing is that diversity you mentioned. After Kane, you had Noni Madueke scoring, Ezri Konsa Marc Guehi, the centre-backs, chipping in, and then Marcus Rashford converting a penalty. Now, you look at the bigger picture, 5 different goal scorers tells you they have threats all over the pitch. It's not just about relying on your main striker. Teams can't just focus on shutting down one player. They've got threats from wide areas, from midfield runs, even defenders on set pieces. That variety, that's crucial if you have serious World Cup ambitions. Makes England way hard to predict, harder to defend against, shows squad depth too.
That's a really interesting point about the depth here. And you mentioned Serbia's defense. Now, a 5-0 win, it sounds like a total cruise, right? But Kane himself, he actually gave some context that sort of challenges that idea. This is where it gets quite interesting. He said afterwards something like, "We're happy with how we performed. It wasn't always easy against an opponent who defended with 11 men and who we had to break through and remain patient." That quote really shifts the perspective, doesn't it? Suggests it wasn't just about individual brilliance. They had a tactical puzzle they needed to solve.
It absolutely does. And it makes you ask, okay, how do you score 5 goals against a team that's essentially, as King puts it, defending with 11 men? It paints a picture of a really significant tactical challenge. Serbia probably set up in a very deep, very compact defensive block, maybe a 5-4-1, something like that, designed purely to frustrate, deny space in behind, clog up the middle. So for England, it meant they couldn't just rely on, say, pace over the top or brute force. They had to be quite methodical. That Serbian setup demanded real patience from England. Moving the ball quickly, yes, but also switching the play, waiting for little gaps to appear, trying to pull defenders out of position. It tells us England really had to work for those goals. Sustained pressure, stretching Serbia wide, then maybe exploiting half spaces or channels when they finally opened up. That kind of disciplined attack, keeping your cool against a packed defense, that's often what separates the really top teams. Shows maturity, tactical understanding, even when you're the dominant side on paper.
Okay, so if Serbia really were that resolute defensively, how did England actually manage it? How did they break them down initially and then keep finding ways through? What did that patience actually involve on the pitch?
Well, you'd see it in a few ways. First, England would have dominated possession hugely, probably upwards of 70%, which is pretty standard against a deep block. But it wouldn't just be keeping the ball for the sake of it. It has to be purposeful possession. Moving it side to side, maybe a bit quicker tempo at times, trying to shift that defensive block. You'd likely see England's fullbacks, perhaps Luke Shaw or Kyle Walker, push really high up, almost like extra wingers. That creates overloads in wide areas, right? It forces Serbia to commit players out there, which in theory should open up spaces more centrally. Tuchel's systems often rely heavily on those kinds of overloads. And then crucially, when those moments or spaces did appear, England showed they had that clinical edge. Kane's header, like we said, exploited a set piece. Maybe a momentary lapse in concentration from Serbia. Madueke's goal probably came from quick feet, maybe beating his man one-on-one, or a smart run into the box once the defense was stretched. Konsa and Guehi scoring, the center backs. That points towards maybe well-rehearsed set-piece routines, or perhaps attacking the second ball after a corner isn't fully cleared.
They stayed forward, and Rashford winning and scoring a penalty suggests he used his pace or dribbling to drive into a dangerous area, forcing a mistake, a foul. So it really shows England had multiple ways to hurt them. Set pieces, individual skill, patient build-up, exploiting errors. They didn't just have plan A, they had B, C, and D as well.
Right, so it wasn't just sitting back and waiting. It was actively probing, actively creating those openings through that systematic pressure and movement. Makes sense. And that strategic patience, plus the clinical finishing, obviously had a massive impact on their qualification hopes. Looking at the Group K table now, what does this win actually mean for England getting to the World Cup?
Oh, it's huge. Absolutely critical. They're now leading the Group K, by 7 points. 7 points clear of Albania, and there are only 3 games left to play. That is a very, very comfortable cushion at this stage. It puts them in an exceptionally strong position to officially book their tickets to the World Cup. Now, mathematically, it's not quite sealed just yet, but realistically, being 7 points clear with only 3 matches to go gives them enormous breathing space. It takes a huge amount of pressure off those final games. Maybe Tuchel can afford to rotate a bit, try a few different things, perhaps rest some key players, give others a chance, without really jeopardizing that main goal. It points to a really well-managed campaign so far. They've effectively got one foot on the plane.
That is a fantastic position to be in, no doubt. So for you listening, why do these details matter? Why are we digging into the tactics, the player comments? It's really not just about knowing the 5-0 scoreline. It's about trying to understand the strategic thinking behind it, recognizing the kind of challenges they overcame, even in a match that looks totally one-sided on paper. When you see a top team like England patiently taking apart a defense that's set up just to frustrate them, like a park the bus scenario, well, there may be broader lessons there about performance, about achieving goals when things are tough.
Exactly. It underlines that success, especially at the highest level, isn't always about just having more raw talent or overpowering someone. Sometimes it's about that methodical process, breaking down obstacles, figuring out what the opposition is doing defensively, and then having the tactical tools, the depth, to find different solutions. England's performance here is a really good case study, actually, how a top side approaches a must-win game, especially against a team trying to stifle them. The patience they showed, the fact they attacked from different angles, scored from open play, scored from set pieces, all those elements combined to produce what looks like an easy win. But as Kane pointed out, it was built on perseverance, on tactical intelligence. It's sort of a blueprint for effective performance, really, whether that's in sport or, navigating challenges anywhere else. They didn't just win. They controlled how the game unfolded, even against resistance.
That's a great way to phrase it. They controlled the narrative of the game. And that's kind of what we try to do here, give you that deeper narrative, that better understanding. So that was our deep dive into England's crucial World Cup qualifier against Serbia, a decisive 5-0 win. We looked at how it wasn't just the score, but the specific contributions from lots of different players, the strategic puzzle of breaking down that compact defense, and, well, the huge step it represents towards World Cup qualification. A real team effort.
And it does leave you with a question to ponder, doesn't it, for you, the listener? Okay, England showed they can be clinical and patient against a defensive setup. Great. But what further strategic tweaks, or maybe what extra mental strength will they need when they inevitably come up against teams at the World Cup who are just as potent going forward as England are? How will Tuchel's system cope against a really aggressive high press, for instance? Or a team that can match them toe-to-toe in midfield? Those are the kinds of tests that really sort out the contenders from the pretenders on that biggest stage.
Absolutely. It's always fascinating to peel back those layers, isn't it? Even in a dominant win, there's strategy, there's player insight to unpack. We really hope this deep dive gave you a quicker, richer understanding of England's road towards the World Cup and maybe sparked for your thoughts. Until next time, keep digging deeper.